Welcome to the You Be the Judge podcast show. My name is Wiri, podcasting from the lovely Asian paradise of Vietnam. I've been researching for over 15 years into various subjects and topics that affect us all in some shape or form. Primarily, alternative real news and exotic real information. The truth can set us free, but first it will piss you off. Today's guest on our show, Poppy, has been a truth seeker all her life. Early childhood trauma set her life course on being an observer and questioning humanity and why this world could be so hostile. She has memories of satanic ritual abuse and lived in a state of survival mode from the beginning. Part of this means that her senses developed differently to others and she was able to see into hidden realms. She became a narrative counselor and retreat center facilitator and learned other mind-body healing modalities that helped bring freedom into people's lives. When the retreat center started to develop a program for people who wanted to explore natural ways to recover from cancer, Poppy and her partner at the time became targeted individuals. Poppy started to connect with other truth activists and collaborated in developing a truth website to help expose agendas and guide people to find help for themselves. It was hacked, but she kept looking for solutions. She worked with Māori sovereignty. She collaborated with many others who sought to find solutions. During this time, she had to take time out to heal from cancers and began to study traditional herbal medicine. Poppy made many discoveries along the way, such as the need to detoxify the body, clear the pineal gland, remove etheric implants, and stay in a great field of love for safety. She has come to believe that everything in life here is to help us grow, no matter how difficult it is. She realized that human consciousness has a large effect on our reality, and her studies of the Mayan calendar helped bring perspective on the human evolutionary path and why we are going through a huge global crisis opportunity at this time. She discovered how words and calendars can be binding and how we as human beings uniting together can undo these bindings. Okay, people, please welcome to the You Be the Judge podcast show for another talk, Poppy. Kia ora, Poppy.
Kia ora, Wiri.
Good to have you back here on the show once again. I think you came on back in the mid-2000s somewhere, maybe 2009 or something like that, way back in the day.
Yep.
What do you see as the current global crisis opportunity currently?
Right, so as everybody's well aware, it's a great big global looking mess in a sense. But I've been studying the Mayan calendar and getting in touch with Dr. Kellerman's books on the quantum science behind it. And I have been whelming myself within it for some years now. After everything that has happened in my search for truth. So what we're actually experiencing now is the downfall of Western civilization. So the Mayan calendar, there's also a pyramid, which is a 9-level pyramid, and that 9-level pyramid represents the levels of our evolution. And after one level finishes, the next level starts, time is quickened by 20 times. So whereas once a day was like 16.4 billion years to start off with, now as we went through all the stages, the next one was 820 million years, then 41 million years at level 3, level 4, 2.05 million years. So what happened was that in 2011, all of those levels of that calendar have culminated. So they're all running.
Right.
So
I'll bring up that calendar. That's the levels of evolution Of consciousness, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I'll bring that up and show people that.
Yeah. So this is a graphic that was put together by Sean Caulfield based on Dr. Kellerman's research. Um, and it really helps to give an overview so that we can see where we're at and why things are happening as they are at the moment,
I saw a
and
similar
also what
one.
we need to do about it.
Exactly. I saw a similar one by Ian Lungold. I followed him for a
Yes.
while in his studies of the Mayan calendar, and he had a very similar one. I think it was exactly the same as what's going on in this calendar as well.
Yes, well, Carl Kellerman and Ian Lungold were together on all that.
Right.
Yeah, Ian Lungold made incredible foundational work, and I came across that in about 2008, but it's been a little bit of progression to actually connect with Dr. Kellerman's work and really actually apply it in my life. Um, yeah, so whereas Dr. Kellerman is the scientist who's discovered this and he spent time with the Mayan elders, I haven't actually spent time with the Mayan elders yet. I would like to. But mine is coming much more from an intuitive perspective, and meditations that I have with Papatuanuku, as we know her here, Mother Earth,
Yes.
or Pachamama, as they would say in Spanish. I really want to draw some attention to the sixth wave, the sixth level. So if you look up to the sixth level, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's what is called the national underworld there.
Yes.
Also the dark ages. And this is so at each level, consciousness changes. So at this national underworld level, the consciousness was very left-brained, and it rose up out of below it was like a shamanic area they called the regional underworld, and that was where people were very connected with nature. They harmonized with nature.
Yes.
It was more like observing your experience rather than rationalizing and analyzing and thinking. So when the left brain consciousness came in, that's also when religions, the money system, and politics, the slavery systems, religions, did I say religions?
Yes.
And sciences. So they all became very, very
Capitalism.
strong. Yes. Yeah, which was part of political things. And so what we have now is that we have a vast amount of our population that have sort of really not risen above that sixth level. They're people that have really wanted to stay in that dualistic era. So of, based on good and evil, right and wrong, the polarization. And a lot of people feel very secure in being led by governments or what science tells them, or being in
Dependent
religions.
on government.
Yeah, yeah. And so our consciousness also can change with each level. And then we went into a new level, and I actually wanted to draw a little bit of attention to the galactic underworld a little bit too, which began in 1999. Like each wave has a kind of a pre-wave that comes
Yes.
in, but then we come into that era, and that galactic area was very much when the internet came. But because it was still dualistic but right-brained, this was where a lot of people have been able to dissemble things. Like they've been able to dissemble how banks work, remember the
Yes.
zeitgeist movement.
Yes.
um,
Actually, around that
how
time, you're right. In the mid 2000s, a lot of that kind of stuff got revealed and was coming out, and a lot of people came together to talk about the monetary system, capitalism. What is it really? And actually, it was actually after 9/11 happened.
Yes, yes,
There was like a trigger
yes.
point.
Yep, yep, it certainly was. And also those that were very much in the sixth layer, trying to stop things progressing. So yeah, because dualism has rewards for some, but only a few. And you'll notice that when we get up into that 9th level, it's the same as at that very shamanistic level as well. So what we're coming back into is really, it's a unity consciousness, but it's with the lessons that we've learned from every single level.
Yes.
So we've actually had to have all of these levels of evolution to learn, so that we could grow and learn by. So it's an absolutely epic time to
be here.
Yeah. So 2011, all the levels of the pyramid culminated. And this is like, where does that leave us? You know,
That's at the
there's been
peak,
a lot of myths.
kind of.
Yeah. And so our task now is to be able to come into unity. Not everybody's going to come along. Now I get a lot of visions and a lot of
Insights.
oh yes, a lot of insights. And really everything is now about us aligning with divine will.
Yes.
So we have like in most indigenous cultures, they acknowledge the directions. So we've got 4 directions. You've got the north, east, west, and south. But then we've got above and below as well. So that's kind of more like our spiritual connection with Source. So we have our earth, like Papatuanuku, or Mother Earth, and then we have Ranganui, Father Sky.
Yes.
And so we need to be connecting in our unified field area, which is our heart, with these 2. So that brings us into divine will within divine time. And this is all very much from the research, but it's also very much part of my intuitive knowing. So
it's awesome. I actually saw a lot of this with Ian Lungold. He also took this calendar and he actually looked how the galactic spiral and how we go around the galactic spiral and how we go up and down through the galactic plane, and the further we get away, the further we lose our connection with one another. It's part of cycles, and then once we come back up towards the galactic plane, which is like what's in sync with what's happening here, we become more connected again. So it's unique how he looked at the wave of the galactic plane, how we go up and down, how our planet goes up and down, our solar system goes up and down, and how it's all connected. So we move in sync with all the other planetary bodies. Like we center the central sun of the Pleiades, which is Alcyon, and then we that circles another system, and so we're all connected, going through this like evolutionary cycle. So
that's highly relevant, and as you said, that what that really sparks up in me is that if we have connection with the earth and sky, then we will come into this divine keeping with time. So time is something that people have often taken for granted.
Yes.
But time has been hijacked and manipulated by running calendars, which have a whole lot of that have bindings, and that have a whole lot of connection to something which is out of kilter.
AKA Gregorian calendar?
Yes, which came through Pope Gregory of the Vatican.
Yes.
A lot of people now are aware of the power of legislation and how binding it is.
Yes.
And how it's caused so much harm and damage upon the whole structure of the earth. Like everything, it's like an overlay which has kind of kept everything captive.
It's like an overlay over the natural world, over the natural reality that we should be living. And in a way, it's kind of like an inverted world. Inversion. Matrix. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, and that's very much how I see it. But then also we have a calendar system. So the Gregorian calendar has all its emphasis on deadlines. It's a flat, dead kind of calendar, which is very disharmonic. and it's geared up towards commerce. So it was really there to make all of the Western world and every place that got colonized, because colonization has been a big part of that sixth layer of the pyramid. So it's actually bound and caught everybody. So we need to be able to somehow remove our consciousness away from that calendar.
Yes.
And and very interesting thing happened that in these very recent years, a man called Jose Aguilares became very strong in the New Age movement, and he introduced a new calendar against the wishes of the Mayan elders, which was called the Dream Spell. And this was the first one that I was aware of. So when
Right.
I heard Ian Lungold, and I was really impressed by what I heard from Ian Lungold, and I was very interested in the Mayan calendar. When I looked it up, or the information that I was given was connected to the Dream Spell, which was again another calendar which was just slightly off skew.
Mm.
And that slight off skewness is like caused quite a wobble in consciousness. And
Like how the Earth, there's a bit of a wobble when the Earth rotates.
absolutely, absolutely. And so I have seen this as an infiltration which tried to throw people off, because with people becoming more aware of the original calendar. Like like I'm saying that it is because it's ancient, that it was based upon the observations of the Maya long, long time ago, and then a lot of indigenous cultures are related, and they, like Maori culture goes back. They know of the Matariki, so that's the Pleiades.
Yes, that's why I
And
talked about Pleiades and the central sun, Alcyon, and
I've done a lot of regressional work. I've gone back over different lifestyles of different lifetimes. I've tried different lifetimes of trying to do the same, mucking up hopelessly. It's all part of the evolutionary path of growing and learning.
do you think these lifetimes and reincarnations and that are actually part of this evolutionary cycle of your consciousness? So you come back again
Yeah,
and you're kind of
yeah.
learning and you're
I
doing
s-
trying to get out
Like
of cycles and get to the next level like a school.
it is, yeah. It's like a soul journey, and the soul journey takes on the different forms.
I think Earth is like a school because, the lessons here are quite dense. I mean, look what's happening around the world, man. And I think, wow, I wonder if other beings out there know of that and they don't want to come to Earth because it's too dense.
Well, I do believe and I do know that our Pleiadian family do cheer us on. And from my world, but like because of a lot of early childhood trauma, a lot of extra senses developed in me. So I've sort of been aware of what happens in other dimensions, and that fourth dimension is a very, very interesting one because a lot of the control and manipulation comes from that dimension, and time is manipulated in that dimension. um, all of these things have been carried through. So to me, time is a real secret. It's a real key to our evolution. There's a channel called Magenta Pixie, and she often says things along those lines that her guides tell her, and I listen to that because they're often referring to time. Um, and yeah, I'd love to have a chat with her about it actually. But yeah, so the Mayan calendar, why it can be important is that it's so ancient there, but it can help us to connect back with the original ways of nature, because in Western society we've been so removed. Most people have lost, who am I, why am I here,
Exactly.
and what am I to
And,
do?
and what am I? If people think they're their name, people think, that they're their status. So those questions, people don't really understand, and I think that's part of this learning, this evolutionary cycle. When I look at this calendar, the levels of evolution of consciousness calendar, and I see the question marks there. So what do the question marks at the top level represent? Is that kind of like dependent on how we feel at that time, or how we consciously are aware at that time, so we decide how things will go, depending. It could be like a path of destruction, or it could be a path of wellness, resource-based economy, love, connection.
Well, I think it's because we're living it and experiencing it. But when you talk about the path to distraction, the Hopi, who are direct descendants of the Maya, talk about the path to distraction. So they see two paths, and they prophesied the two paths. So the one path to distraction, which was looking like it was all going to be going back to technology, and now so much is about technology. So these vaccinations are technology.
Yes.
That they're trying to threaten people with. As an example, and it's, to me, and from what I've seen, that's technology that can actually remove the soul from the person. So
well, look at what's happening with AI coming in now. The whole 5G thing, in terms of the global satellites have been put up in the sky now, and I see China have now got a similar replica of what Google has got. And there's a guy that I looked, his name is Cyrus, and he talks about how they're now going to be using super AI, super artificial intelligence now, which is replicating the human being, the human way of thinking, emotions, all that kind of thing. So it's actually removing that human essence.
I mean, there's things out on YouTube that have been out for a while. There's a YouTube something about removing the God molecule, and that's talking about using things like vaccination, basically. I've been looking at why do children get autism, and a bit of Harold Coates-Valler's work, and the fragmentation of the soul is actually just the soul gets so jarred out of the body that other things take over, and of a very parasitic nature. So there's these two paths, and really it's a choice for humanity which ones they want to go. Do we want to go down to this technology where we're going to be run by AI basically to survive?
Hunger Games society?
The other way is to return to nature, and it's to return to everything, which is really like coming back into full connection with our cosmic parents, Mother Earth and Father Sky, and aligning and attuning with their will. So this is divine will, and as humans we have free will, which path we're going to choose.
Yes.
And basically there's a war on that. Those that have very much had that power and control, the heads of the hierarchies, the billionaires club, the Illuminati, whatever we want to call them, the cabal, have been trying to harvest the human soul and to use that, because humans basically, we have high co-creative abilities. So with our thoughts, we create thought forms, and when you see beyond the veil and you see into the other dimensions, you can actually see the thought forms that get created, and they, like, thoughts become things. So if those thoughts could be controlled by like the entertainment industry, or all the ways that they've got in, then they harness the human's consciousness for their purposes, whereas really we have to come into our own and become masterful. So if we've risen through all of those levels of consciousness, and we do our personal development and we do our personal work, then we can potentially create the greatest and most beautiful paradigm.
Yes, I see it as a hijacking of our perceptions is what I think they're doing, and they're doing it on a very subliminal way too, in a very cunning way, and they've been doing it intergenerationally. So you have kids, you actually are part of the system, then your kids actually become part of the system, their kids become part of the system, and you follow that systematic robotic compliance. And I think people are caught in that at the moment, breaking that robotic compliance out there. And I see like a crisis of this nature. I see often opportunities to impose greater social restrictions, but I think it's also opportunities to bring about greater social change, which I think is what you're talking about in terms of
Yeah.
this crisis and these
Yeah.
opportunities that are before us. And when I looked at those question marks at the top of the pyramid there, it's like, okay, it seems like we've got a choice to make.
There's one little word at the top of that one, and that word is trust, and that is paramount.
Yes.
So it's about trusting a divine plan, uh, and that we are actually on a huge destiny road. So when we're now coming together, because this is all about us, it's about we now. It's no more about I, we have to come together. We need to unite our collective consciousness for the highest good, and the more that can come into alignment with divine will and divine time, the more rapidly we can move into that new earth reality, where we can actually be free of the bonds and the slaveries and the bindings. So the bindings of legislation, the bindings of government, whose job is simply to create legislation, and
Yes.
then they use mainstream media to enforce, to brainwash or to socially condition people. They'll use police and everything to enforce that legislation. So we have to be able to escape from that, but we also have to heal all the fears that are inside of us. So I would say at the moment, if what happens inside of us and what happens outside of us is one and the same, there's a huge fear in humanity of that enslavement. So we're working out the trauma of having been traumatized, having been enslaved, having been removed from our mother, because every native culture has been removed from their lands. And that is a way that they've also removed people from themselves and knowing themselves, because we're one with the land.
Yes. One with the land,
Yeah.
one with one another.
Yeah.
That,
And why colonization was such a strong agenda, and why it's so brilliant to be in this country, Aotearoa, which is commonly known as New Zealand in its corporate name, is because Maori have been one of the most recently colonized, as you would know.
yes.
So the memory is fresher on the DNA. As you were saying, how it creeps in. They instilled everything very one thing at a time, as in order to try not to be noticed.
Yeah.
So this is why
I
you look
call
at
it the totalitarian tiptoe.
Yep, that's the one. Yep, that's it. And if we can look at, well, how did our grandmothers live, or whatever, but because that DNA memory is still fresh in most Maori, that there was that connection with the land a few generations back, there's been an enormous amount of good warrior activity that's
Yes.
been going on. And like, I have been a targeted individual, and I've got to say that most of the people that came on my side and supported me have been Maori people, because of the knowing of the pain, because Maori have been a targeted race.
Yes.
The San are a targeted race. The San are the native people in of the Kalahari. It was legal was it Zimbabwe or somewhere, to actually hunt them. That was legal. That's
Wow.
legislation. That's written into law. I mean, it has been repealed. But this is the attitude, and so the peoples of the land, it's been a genocidal regime. I mean, you could say if my blood would probably be Celt, and that was also a genocidal thing, but it was a lot longer ago. And so most people that are white as I am don't have that memory on the DNA. Um, and like, I believe that also a lot of us are aware that, we talked about coming from the Pleiades, and there's a lot of people that come from the different star. We recognize that there's some star-seededness that we have, that we are more than just our earthly existence, that our souls have memory of other places that you were talking about before.
Yes.
And you ships, and I have too.
Yeah, I had a lot of
And
dreams like that. I'm going, what
yeah,
the heck? And I remember those dreams. They're quite vivid. I've had a lot of vivid dreams. The most vivid dream I had was me coming out of my body, and I could see my body, and I flew out, and I could see my body. I could see my city. I could see New Zealand and the Earth, and I'd actually be pulled away from the solar system. I could see the solar system. Then I go through these stars, and then I come out to the spiral of the galaxy, and I could see the actual spiral of the galaxy. And then I have this like real butterfly feeling. And then I get
yeah,
pulled back in to the galaxy, and I'm rushing back in, and it's pulling me back into my body again. And then as soon
yeah,
as it pulls me back into my body, I'm waking up, and there's like this butterfly sensation in around my mid area, and I'm going, what the heck is that? What is that?
yeah. Well, that is that in our dream time we're busy. Sometimes you wake up in the morning and you're absolutely exhausted. You could have been out, being a warrior somewhere, you know, because we're multi-dimensional beings.
Yeah.
And like some truth movies like Avatar, while they're sleeping, they're off over to here doing this.
Yes.
So I'm also very aware, and I've had memory of being on like missions, that I've gone
Wow.
with, and my form is different. I've shapeshifted into something to be able to do that. So this is this is actually all part of us. So
Mm.
because of the fragmented existence or the trauma that we've had, we've literally had to pull ourselves together to
Right.
heal of the pains, the traumas, and what's been on our DNA, the genocide, the effects of colonization, all of these things. We've had to repair them. So the more that we detox our body, and I know you've been doing that too,
Yes, I've
massively.
done it when I was on the farm. I was around 200 kgs, and I lost like 100 kgs and got more healthy and more clear-minded, and it kind of
Mm,
set me off on this journey around the world, meeting different cultures and everything like that, vlogging and a whole bunch of other things to where I am now. And it's been a really awesome journey so far,
yeah.
and most of it I've been actually following my intuitive knowing. So, your intuition,
Yes.
and I've been following that. So, it's been telling me, when this crisis first started, back in March, everyone's going, go back to New Zealand, go back to New Zealand. And I was actually feeling my intuition first. My intuition was saying, no, stay here.
Yep.
You
And
don't
that's
need
your
to go
heart.
back there.
Yep.
You are safe here. You will be protected here. Do your mahi, and you will be
Yep.
okay. And so, my mum was going, come back here, come back, come back. And my friends that were here in Vietnam, they said, oh, I'm going back to New Zealand. I'm going. I said, you go. I'm fine. I'm okay here.
Yep.
And they go, are you
Yep.
crazy staying here in this Asian country? Da, da, da. I said, I'm fine. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
And that's it.
yeah, so I've
That's
been
your heart, Mark.
following that intuitive knowing, I call it, and just
Yeah.
going with those intuitive
Yeah.
feelings now. I'm
Yeah.
really tuning
Which is
in.
really, it's really important because the intuitive is your heart knowing. It actually comes from your heart. Um, that because the frequency of the heart is so much faster than the frequency of the mind.
Mm.
And now the frequency of time has moved past the frequency of the mind. That's why people are going insane. They're going crazy,
Yeah,
and they can't hold it
and a
together.
lot of suicides are happening, and a lot of social,
Mm.
depression and stress is out there.
Yeah,
And yeah, you've got to really hold your vibrational frequency, during times like this
that's
as
right.
well. It can
That's
affect
right.
you. So, and so that's why I started back doing these podcasts. And one of my friends goes, are you crazy doing that? The police will come and shut you down because, we're in lockdown and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm not scared. I said, there's no need to
No.
fear. I
No,
said,
no. We just got to keep that heart energy strong always.
exactly.
It's saved my life. It's absolutely saved my life because I have been targeted. Okay, so my ex-partner and I, we were together then, obviously, and we had a retreat centre. And so mostly people were coming for things like depression and anxiety and some addictions and that. And I got quite a strong intuition
Right.
to start um, creating something that could be for people to explore natural ways of healing cancer. It had been in my family, and I, um, I thought, the suffering and the medical system and everything, which I had formerly had to get out of before as part of my detox from antidepressants and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, so we started to put together a program, and like we facilitate. So that means we bring other people in. Anyway, a watchdog came and he got in touch, and he got in touch with the Advertising Standards Authority, saying that complaining about the website, and they tried to put these charges against us. And well, when we asked who they were, they didn't actually have any authority to do anything legal. But anyway, they decided to do that, and I spoke to them and put the website right and quickly withdrew anything to do with cancer. But anyway, both my partner and I had a clear conscience about what we'd done, and when they said, "Well, you can appeal our decisions," we thought, well, it doesn't matter to us, so we didn't. And within hours, we were in national newspapers, and so this is basically what the Advertising Standards Authority will do, is that they will try to launch on anyone that's a threat to the ways of the system, and get charges and just feed it to the mainstream media. So here we are, mainstream media, my first big direct encounter with propaganda, because I was interviewed by the New Zealand Herald, which is the main New Zealand newspaper. I'm thinking, wow, what an awesome interview that was. Quite keen for it to come out and for something to come right, only to find that they had twisted my moods and made us look like we were demon children, basically. And absolutely shocked that, I mean, I think we'd already met and we were already looking into things, and I was starting to become aware of the banking systems and going through the different layers and the different emotions and the rages and, everything that comes with those discoveries. Yeah, and it was very interesting to see how everything worked and how the system comes in on you. They tried to bankrupt my ex-partner. They tried to put false legal charges against him, which anyway, that's I leave that where that is at the moment. But someone from the Skeptic Society came along and basically took that article from the New Zealand Herald and just put a different title on it, which was "Getting Rid of the Shonks," and that went around all the pharmaceutical magazines. So this is a little bit how they work. And because I was seeing into other dimensions, I sort of saw the lawyers that were after my ex-partner while they were doing it. And it kept us safe to a certain degree. But we were basically on the run. What happens to people that there's many people that have been in health sector or health areas that have been killed. And we were just chatting before briefly, weren't we, Wiri, that there are people that we know that were being killed for taking the stand, and this is why I also find it so upsetting when people start calling us conspiracy theorists, not realizing that they're actually enabling the paedophile and the child trafficking and all the things that are running underneath this COVID scandemic.
Plandemic. Yes, exactly.
Plandemic, yep. To keep a hold. Yeah. So
I don't know if you've seen that movie Plandemic, but it also
I did.
in it, yeah, it's fantastic. In it, it actually talks about the whole big push now that media are pushing to try and take out what they call conspiracy theorists, but really they're critical thinkers. And like ourselves, we're critical thinkers because they don't want the critical thinkers to challenge their narrative. They're trying to make and push the official narrative onto the public's perceptions to gain public perception. And that movie is fantastic, which outlines all the facts and the evidence there, and the big push, the smears that they do against people, which is what I think you and your ex-partner went through, was a lot of media smearing. And so this actually, if people can, take some time to watch that Pandemic 2 movie, it sums up everything that's going on right now and some of the things that are going to be happening now. Like this big push now for... the big, huge push now for the mutation, I call it, to be mute, to not speak out with the masks on, to not actually express yourselves, the gagging, that's the word, the constant gagging and the labeling of critical thinkers as conspiracy theorists, to shut them down so that their official narrative can be pushed onto the public and get their perceptions and to gain their perception. So I highly recommend people watching that documentary. It's very informative of this current narrative, this current event that's going on right now, the pandemic.
And it's the awareness. We all have to have that awareness. And I was invited into the Anonymous family a little while ago, so I've sort of been watching a little bit here and there, and I've been a little bit in touch with the Patriots from years ago, 2018. I was sort of looking at what the Patriots and the White Hats were saying, and then Q comes along, and then we see, and also I had a very strong vision of Donald Trump appearing as a galactic brother, very golden. And I was like, whoa, why are you appearing to me? I'm not even political, but it's like, he was just there, and he was saying thank you, because we are actually all working on this. So I know that he has a heck of a lot of support behind him, and we will know in the mainstream media, we will see changes in the mainstream media. It's just going to take time, because the mess that has to be cleaned up, the satanic ritual abuse, that touched my life.
Definitely. The pedophilia.
And the children, and the, the taking of youth, all of these things, they are all going to be known, and people will be outraged. And I mean, we did this years ago. We went through the rage and the anger a long time ago. It's been hard, hasn't it? Like, just to be so suppressed and to feel like, oh, I've got to be so careful what I say, who I say it to, all of these things. But now there's really not a lot more time, I just really want to see things come into alignment. So what can people do is they really have to be able to live by their heart and their intuition now. So and to really align with true time, not this commercial government timelines, which are all deadlines, and they're all to just flog people to work harder. I mean, that's all breaking down.
Yes. So to keep people in a loop. It's a psychological loop, I call it.
Yeah, because this is the end of a massive era. So there's kind of like been a spiritual war going on to basically to have souls. Do we want to keep our own soul, our own heart, and be sovereign in our own right and self-determining, or do we give ourselves away to be basically used for other purposes? And even though it may look attractive to some, that you've got all the comforts that you need and all this sort of thing because you get your immunization and all this sort of thing, it's not going to work like that. Basically, people are going to lose their souls. I do feel it's really important for every land to go back more to its native roots and to get really familiar with the cultural ways that were there before the colonization. The community way of living and sharing and sharing food and growing things
Exactly.
and
Being social and
yeah, and communities raising the children, not just nuclear families. Um,
exactly, like how the Māori had the marae, papakainga. You could go away and hunt, and then auntie will look after the kids, or the cousin will look after the kids, and that you come back with food. It wasn't just for you; it was for everyone. You shared,
yeah,
So that's the kind of thing we need to get back into, is that kind of state. Now we're in these,
yeah.
like, I would say, pens. I mean, I went to Hong Kong last year, and I don't know if you've been to Hong Kong before, but they've got buildings
Only,
that actually look like prison cells. So you go into like a room, that's the house, and the room's probably like 3 meters by 3 meters. That's it. The kitchen's in there, the toilet's in there. It was like a prison cell. And I'm thinking,
yeah,
wow, this is a really disconnected place with nature, from nature.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, and they're wanting people to go into the cities now. They want people to live in the
yeah,
cities. Don't live out in the country. Don't live out with nature. Which is one of the beautiful
yeah.
things in Vietnam here, is that the people here grow their own food still. They still have organic food. They bring the organic food into the city, into the markets. And so it's really a beautiful thing here. In fact, McDonald's tried getting into Vietnam. McDonald's got kicked out because the locals didn't want to eat
Right,
McDonald's. They weren't going.
brilliant.
They weren't going to any McDonald's stores, and so they were only buying the local food from the local people here. It was hard for the McDonald's to come here, and all these big
Yeah,
other food companies that have processed food. So living here in Vietnam has been a real pleasure, and I've enjoyed how the people here are still connected with nature here, and so I think
yeah.
that's a really good
And
thing.
and and in the 70s, it was so war torn there.
Yes, definitely.
So what a transformation and what a model of hope.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge.
Also, I noticed that when I was in Langkawi in Malaysia, that there was such a communal way of living, that there were people that had the different roles, you go out and people would be selling the street food or whatever, but that's a
Yeah,
little bit was the culture, was everybody was looking after each other
each
and they
other.
just had this harmony. Yeah. Um, yeah, and the community that I feel is really my home, up in the Hokianga, there's there's just such a beautiful potential to get things off at community grassroots levels because it's a place with high poverty and people look. I was sick. I was absolutely incredibly sick up there, and a community of people reached out and helped me, and it was a new phenomenon to me and I had not experienced that before. So, and it was part of my healing. It touched my heart. Um, and so, yeah, I want to be able to do what I can also to create that. But that's our new ways forward, and it's also getting back to the Hopi prophecy. It's again, it's connecting up with nature and what is the will of our mother, who nourishes us and feeds us, and is a sentient being that we can all communicate with. So I meditate with her every day and listen to her as to what she is saying.
Fantastic.
She asked me to be a mouthpiece for her. Um, the Mayan calendar is one with her. It's actually a part of her because it's all the natural ways of nature. That those are the codes. That's what's hidden in it's hidden within that calendar. Like it's so multi-layered and so multi-dimensional.
Hmm.
But now that we're in this night, we've all of those levels have culminated and we're beyond even the ninth level, and everything is about coming back into unity consciousness. Okay, so it's actually working with those time waves. So what I'm finding, and Dr. Carl Callanan really encouraged me to start looking at the ninth wave codes, and I really am, and I'm actually starting to see how they are. Each time is relating to what we're going through.
Is that the spiral
And
one? That's the
well, in a way, you could say it's spiraling up, but it's like a wave. It's so time moves in a sine-like wave, like a serpent.
yes.
Um, yeah, and it's, it's not a straight deadline which is taking you to something that you're never going to, like walking behind, a donkey dangling carrots in front of its nose.
So how does the Mayan calendar connect with indigenous cultures?
Right. Well, okay, through the, so as Māori, you recognise your connection with the Matariki, which is
Yes.
the Pleiades. Okay, so that's we have this commonality that a lot of indigenous cultures of the earth, so the Japanese and I say Subaru, uh,
Yes.
Subaru, it's supposed to be said in a monotone. And there's the Chinese and the Hopi, and there's a whole lot that go back to our star lineage. And then when we go back to the cosmic axis, where the time pulses emanate from, basically we're all connected. Um, and the native culture of every land used to live by nature.
Mm.
So Maramataka, I think, is the Maori calendar which they're trying to bring back in, and this it was in the news recently because there's been a huge suicide rate in Maori youth, and that people are trying to encourage people to get back in that calendar because it holds meaning. It holds meaning for the culture. So, like not everybody's going to probably connect with the Mayan calendar. I mean, there's calendars for agriculture, there's calendars for fishing, there's calendars for ceremonies, and all these different things. But it's getting back to what is in alignment with nature, with the earth, and with the sky. When we connect with nature, and the longer that we spend with nature and the longer we have that time, we actually get fed and nurtured by nature. It keeps us grounded, it keeps us sane, it gives us solace, it gives us rest, it's unconditional, and there's only truth. There's only truth in nature. Right, and this is why things are so important, why we actually detox our systems. When you have this interdimensional sight, a little bit like I am, sometimes we can see entities and attachments around people. Now, things can actually be etheric, things can actually be implanted in the body, but also nanoparticles and all these sorts of things implanted within the body. And when I actually went through the process of etheric implant removal, and it was incredible what was in my body, what was
Attached?
and draining and taking energy.
Well, the Aborigines do the similar thing with holographic kinetics. So they do
Yeah,
a lot of that work to release a lot of those attachments and a lot of those, and they say some of them actually come from past lives and
yeah,
contracts that you've had in past lives that need to be fulfilled and all sorts of different things. So they do a process to actually release a lot of that stuff too, which is similar to what you're talking about.
yeah. And I mean, for anybody can do this one, and this is something I recommend, is to drink 4 liters of distilled water or distillates, which could be freshly squeezed orange juice. And urine therapy is also that, but distilled water is probably more palatable to most. And what that will actually do is it actually starts to strip away anything inorganic out of your body. So any nanoparticles, heavy metals, parasites, all of these things will start to detox and come out of your body. Plus, it will also unfreeze the pineal gland. So the pineal gland has rods and cones, just like our eyes do, but it's right in the middle of the brain, and it's what we see when we dream. When we, we actually get to see. We have like our third eye, and we also have like our third ear, But we have these other senses that we've lost because of our bodies becoming tainted, our polluted, our environment becoming polluted. So we have to unpollute our body. And if we drain the swamp within, we're going to start draining the swamp outside of us too, because we are actually conscious co-creators ourselves.
Yes.
So if we can heal ourselves from an inner level, we're going to see change on an outer level as well. Control the pineal gland, they can control the human. So if they can close that down,
Yes.
which fluoride is one of the main things that frees that. So fluoride in the water, fluoxetine is a SSRI inhibitor, antidepressant medication. 1080 is filled with fluoride. I used to take fluoride tablets as a child. My mother and sister, we took fluoride tablets as children. Yeah, so that's one. And then, all the things that are coming through with the mass immunization of children. You see some children are literally shocked out of their body and into autism.
Yes,
from it.
totally. I see the Pope has that pineal gland on his looks like on his walking stick. He has the pineal gland, and even when I went to Italy, I went to the Vatican, and I looked outside the Vatican windows when I was there, and I saw this massive, like what looked like a pineal gland, and I'm going, what the
Yep.
heck is that doing there? Why would they put
Hmm.
a pineal gland right in the middle of the court at the Vatican? I actually
Yep.
took a picture of it when I travelled
Yep.
there, and I'll try and bring it up so
Yep.
people can actually see. Yeah, so you're right. It looks
Yeah.
like a pine cone.
Yeah, that's right. And then, like another book that Dr. Carl Kellerman has written is this one.
Quantum Science of
Um,
Psychedelics.
yeah, so he talks a lot about the pineal gland being like a reducing valve.
Is that on his website? I'm on his website now. Books. It
Yes,
should
yes,
be in
yes,
his
that book is on it,
website.
and I highly recommend that book. And I've got three of his books, but this one is incredible in nine
Yes, there
ways
it
of
is.
perception. But
Yep.
psychedelics has been a way that people have actually returned to nature, or they've had that encounter with the spirit of the earth, and they've been reacquainted. And yeah, a lot of people have actually had drastic life changes. Yeah, I actually really love this. He goes over the nine levels of evolution in this book as well, but he also talks and discusses quite a lot about quantum science and psychedelics as like a connection to the multi-dimensional reality. And his connection, particularly, he talks a lot about his connection was with Father Sky, and so the heart of Father Sky, he called it. And I have had experiences myself, and mine was more in connection with the heart of Mother Earth. So this is what I recognize as the two source. It's source, and nothing should get in between. So really, like the system is set itself up as God in between us and our direct connection with nature. So the answer is to return to nature, to really expand that field around our heart, um, acts of kindness, being loving,
Community.
helping. Community, absolutely, absolutely. Sharing food and dance and laughter. Um,
Moving towards a
this
more enriched, ethical awakening, I would say.
absolutely. And getting back to some of the indigenous ways, like when I was in South Africa, I was with the San, and they did the trance dances in my presence, which was an incredible honor.
Wow.
But as they're doing those dances and the woman is singing the song, and the men are stamping the rattles in the ground and walking around the fire and going into that, they're actually working with the frequencies of the earth. And it's really, really one with the earth, and it creates healing for everybody.
Wow.
I love the people there so much. They were just incredible. And yeah, it's just bringing back the richness of every indigenous culture. Like the dances and the songs are such a vital part, and singing and music and dance and flow, like these things are part of being human. You know that so many people have lost sight of and gone for distractions and movies, like almost giving our consciousness away to something else that isn't, which is a fictional overlay over the top of nature.
Acquiescing to this matrix is what a lot of
Yeah,
people are doing. And you're
Yeah.
right, giving away your power and not actually realizing the actual power you have. But not only that, the collective power we have together when we actually
Yes.
work together and we come
Yeah.
together. It is so powerful. And I mean, I look at
Yeah.
people like Facebook, YouTube, and people say, "Wow, they're powerful companies." And I say, "Well, how are they powerful companies?" I said, "Who, who is on YouTube? Who is on Facebook? It's us. We're on
Yes.
there. They're our videos of us. They're our conversations. They're our pictures.
Yeah.
They're our videos. They're our content. It's us
Yeah.
that are on there. We are the power." And people don't
Yeah.
realize that. They kind of go, "Wow, actually, I didn't realize that." I said, "Yeah." I said, "We have
Yep.
that." It's that we've forgotten it. And I remember, I think it was the Hopi that said it, is that we were in a period of what they call the period and time of the great forgetting, where we'd
Right.
forget our connection with nature, would forget our connection with one another. But they said it was part
Mm.
of our conscious evolutionary path, exactly the same as the Maya. And they said that it's to do with the cycles, the universal cycles, what I explained about the spiral and us going up and down through the galactic plane.
Mm.
And they said, but there's going to be a period of time where that great forgetting will actually go away and we'll actually come back to that oneness once again. And I think we're heading to
Great
that.
purification.
Yes, the great period purification, the great awakening, some are calling it. And I'm looking
Yes.
forward to that, and I'm slowly seeing it happen. I'm slowly
It's
seeing
creeping
people
in.
open up and awaken. And you've got awesome guys, like Billy Takahika, he's out there doing his thing. And you've got other people doing their thing, London Real. So they're, David
Yes.
Icke, all these people, Mickey
Mm.
Willis from the pandemic. And so these
Yes.
guys are contributing to that consciousness and that
Yeah,
awakening.
we all can by being our authentic and true self, like remembering who we are and why we're here. Like everyone is, we're all 100% valuable souls and we are all contributing. And, like all of these beautiful youth that are, committing suicide, it's such a huge loss. If only they would know who they are, why they're here. This is where we need to come around and help each other to remember. So, and this is the other great thing about the Mayan calendar is that it's really helped me to find who I am, to remember who I am, and to heal. And when I was following this one, which was slightly off skew, I was so incredibly sick, and I was saying, "What's going on? What's going on?" And I couldn't find out until I met Sean Caulfield and Carl Kellerman, and they really helped me to align with true time. And Sean Caulfield at the time, he said time is going to go cosmic, and I didn't even know what that
Mm.
meant. I was like, what does that mean? Now I know what it means. So if anybody wants to experience what time going cosmic is, just align, try it, just to start aligning with the ninth wave. Time is just going to keep spinning off this density and this dross because it's moving so much faster than the speed of thought now. And so it's inevitable. There's no going back. We are going to
Mm.
make it through. We just have to keep trusting that this is a divine plan, but that we can actually speed it up by coming into unity, um, and by being kind and loving towards people. Because as people wake up, they're going to need us to look,
Yes.
hey, I understand. I know the rage. I know the anger. I know what it's like when you discover that you've been lied to for your entire life and that life is not what you think it is. Um, but this is it. So, uh, people have been held hostage. Mainstream media is like a mind control program.
Definitely.
Govern is control, ment is mind. Government makes legislation, and the news actually puts it out there. So I looked up conspiracy, and it said a conspiracy is a secret plan by a group to do something unlawful or harmful. So to me, that sounds very much like a group of government
Yes.
who are doing
Or a
that,
group
and
of
they are,
cultists.
yeah, yeah, and yeah. I mean, you could say, well, is colonization a conspiracy? Like looking at the bigger picture. Um, Yeah, so we have to clean ourselves up. Yeah, I was
Yes,
just looking a little bit.
and
And a lot of it's about losing the fear of death, losing the
yes,
fear of disapproval, rejection. It's having the courage to love and think and feel independently and stand up for the future of our children, ourselves and our children. So fear is actually the tool of enslavement.
it is,
Yeah.
and fear is, you know, a lot of people are still in that fear, but also a lot of people are awakening. So we can get to a point of maybe a critical mass awareness point, and that's
Yes.
the point that I think, you know, if we can get to that critical mass awareness point, that it'll just
Yep.
explode. And
Yep.
I'd say, you know, those that have been that have these agendas out there and these cultists, I think, yeah,
Mm.
there's going to be a bit of karma coming their way. So yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah. I've actually seen that in a vision too. Yeah, yeah. It's going to be well and truly taken care of, and it could be quite a celestial event. So I saw that in a very strong vision that the gatekeepers of the matrix will. It's almost in the vision that I had is that they are going to almost like be magnetically pulled from the earth. Now, do you remember when the Aboriginal people of Australia were doing the umbilical connection earlier this year at Uluru?
oh yes, 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 I remember that.
Yeah. Well, I was tuning in with it through because, well, the Earth was tuning me in with it because it's all related to the Earth.
Yes,
I actually saw an old woody kind of umbilicus release from underneath,
right,
and this new one, beautiful, it had the most beautiful colors going up above. And it was like while the Earth was connected to this old one, it was like she was in this funnel and she was going, and then and it disconnected. And then I saw like all of this snow falling down from the earth. And I was talking to a friend who's tohunga, and I was just explaining to him the snow, and suddenly I got to zoom up. And in every snowflake that I was seeing, it was a cocoon of a human being, and it was really beautiful. They were safe. They were cocooned like a silkwormy kind of wrapping, but they were going back down to the old reality because that's what they had chosen. They needed to be in that part of evolution
right,
because that's their part of evolution.
yes,
So a lot of people are not going to get it. They're
no.
not going to awaken.
How does the calendar affect human consciousness?
Right. Okay. They have just, it's very much similar to how legislation is binding.
Right,
It has an energy. A calendar also has a theme and an energy. So the Gregorian calendar is all about competition. It's highly dualistic. It's about basically making more money for the ones that wanted to put
right,
it up to give dominance and control. Whereas the Maramataka is based on nature, the rhythms in this country which relate to this land. The Mayan calendar is based upon nature and quantum physics. There, you can have other calendars which are based upon the more Newtonian type of astrology. I like the quantum physics most of all. That's what I see that we're really evolving into. I've got a lot of respect for Dr. Callanan's work, and he's done a lot of videos. He's done a lot, and he would just love it if everybody basically connected in with the ninth wave energies, because they are the energies of unity, and so much else is still the energy of duality. Yeah. And to me, unity is the heart. It's the sum of every experience that we've ever had coming into complete balance and harmony. So I got a very, very a strong vision when I met the spirit of the earth. I asked to meet her, and I met her, and it's like she took me into this beautiful lake. It was like selenite in color. It was opalescent, and we swam in this lake, and I had the experience of being in every experience. It's like the all, it's everything that is there, but perfect bliss and harmony because it had come into balance. So about. and being grateful for every single experience that we've ever had, because it's grown us, it's evolved us. I've had horrendous experiences in this life, but now I have finally got to a point where I can say, look, I am grateful. I am grateful they have given me everything that I need right now. Um, and I'm grateful that I'm on this evolutionary divine path. And this gratitude, again, it's another way that we stay in our heart. Gratitude for nature, gratitude for everything that we've ever known, everything we've ever been.
Gratitude for this
Even
experience. I mean, it might sound
Yes.
crazy, I'm saying thank you for giving us this experience of, the lockdown or whatever it is, but it's actually part of this evolutionary cycle, this evolutionary path that we're on. And if we accept it,
Yeah,
it kind of gives us a
yeah,
release as well. So we're not
yeah,
resisting it in a way, and we're
yeah,
accepting of it. And by accepting it, that release is gone, and we've got more room now to actually focus on other things. It's like, your glass, you can only fit so much into it. If you hold on to too much, you start learning new stuff, it overflows.
trusting the life experiences that are around us, um, using our heart guidance to take action when we need to say, no, I'm not going to take that vaccine, or,
Yes.
well, can you prove that it doesn't have this, and this, and this in it? Can you prove that there's no negative side effects? Well, if there's not, then, if there's going to be side effects, no, I don't want to harm my body. I'm choosing not to. With heart guidance, it's savvy and it's wise, and it's courageous and strong. A lot of people think, oh, the heart's just this sort of lovey-dovey sort of
Mm.
male-female connecting thing, but no, it's about everything that we've ever known. It's every lesson we've ever learned. It's intuition.
What do you
We
say to
have that.
those that are still in fear out there and, are looking for guidance? What do you say to some of those people?
Get into your heart, be quiet, be still, go get your feet into nature, sit with nature for a while, just tune in. Yeah.
Get some sun.
Do it. Yeah, get some sun. If you can't go outside because of lockdown, meditation. Just breathe into the heart, breathe through the heart. Like, my meditation is very much breath in through the heart. I always sort of listen and tune into Pachamama, Papatuanuku.
Awesome.
For me, but, you know, it's whatever it is for a person. For me, I don't want too many things standing between my direct connection with source. So I sort of don't sort of get into archangels and things like that.
Mm.
I kind of, some people do, and we all find our own way. But for me, just a direct connection. Um, yeah, which religions have often been a connection to something else that has been posing as a god or a guru or something else. But even in those scriptures, religious scriptures itself, it says, let nothing get between you and what they call God, which I'm saying is source. Yeah, the source energy, the cosmic axis, the tree of life, the universal tree of life.
Thank you everyone for tuning in today. Don't forget to follow and like us on Facebook and YouTube at youbethejudgeworld, and email us at youbethejudgeworld@gmail.com. See you all on the next podcast, and remember, the truth can set you free, but first it will piss you off, and you be the judge.